Imagine the rain. You can smell it, can't you? That metallic, oppressive scent of wet iron and mud that permeates the early chapters of Berserk. We are back in that mercenary tent. The year is uncertain. The location is a muddy hellscape. And inside, a tragedy is about to birth a monster. Or rather, it is about to birth a struggler. In the canon reality, the one we know and suffer through, this is the night Guts loses his soul to save his life. Gambino, the man who is ostensibly his father, the man who taught him to hold a sword, the man who sold him out for 3 silver coins, Gambino stumbles in. He is drunk. He is crippled. He is consumed by a self-hatred so profound it has turned into a weapon. He swings his crutch. He swings his sword. And Guts, operating on pure survival instinct, that beastly reflex that will one day defy the God Hand, thrusts his blade. The steel goes through Gambino's throat. A father dies by his son's hand. And in that moment, Guts accepts a horrific truth. He is a cursed thing. He is death. But stop. Freeze the frame. Look at the panel where Guts is on the floor, eyes wide, the lantern light flickering. Let's wind back the clock of causality. Let's twist the dial of fate, just a fraction. What if Guts missed? Or what if he just parried? Imagine the sword clattering against Gambino's blade, sparks flying in the dim tent. The force knocks the drunk old man backward into the mud. Guts doesn't lunge. He doesn't finish the job. The horror of what is happening, that his father wants him dead, overwhelms the rage. He doesn't fight back. He flees. He tears through the canvas of the tent and sprints into the rain. He runs until his lungs burn, until the shouts of the mercenary camp fade into the storm. He is alive. Gambino is alive. And everything has changed. This isn't just a minor tweak. This is a fundamental rewriting of the psychological DNA of the Black Swordsman. To understand why, we have to peel back the layers of trauma that Kentaro Miura so masterfully painted onto Guts' soul. In our timeline, Guts carries the weight of patricide. It is the original sin of his existence. He believes, deep down in that abyss of his subconscious, that Gambino was right. Remember what he thinks later? That he brings death to everyone he loves? That started here. Because he killed Gambino, Guts internalized the idea that he is a catalyst for destruction. He became a jagged edge, pushing people away to protect them from himself. But in this new timeline, Guts is not a murderer of kin. He is a runaway. Think about the psychology of a runaway versus a parasite. A parasite is haunted by what he did. A runaway is haunted by what he escaped. Our new Guts is running through the woods, shivering, clutching that oversized sword. He doesn't have the blood of his father on his hands. He has confusion. He has betrayal. But he doesn't have the guilt. This Guts is still traumatized. Let's not pretend the Donovan incident didn't happen. That scar is etched into his flesh, regardless of Gambino's fate. But the narrative he tells himself is different. He isn't a monster who killed his dad. He is a victim who survived. This shift in self-perception is massive. It changes how he holds his sword. Canon Guts fights with a suicidal recklessness because part of him wants to be punished. He fights like a man who expects to die, who deserves to die. But a Guts who simply ran away. He fights to survive, yes, but perhaps with a little more preservation, a little less fury, a little more caution. He is a wounded animal, not a rabid one. Fast forward. The years pass. Guts grows. He becomes the mercenary we recognize. But the edge is different. He is still a beast on the battlefield. That comes from the size of his sword and the necessity of his life. But the silence around him is less heavy. In the canon, when Guts meets the Band of the Hawk, he is seeking a place to die as much as a place to live. He challenges Griffith because he wants to destroy something beautiful, or be destroyed by it. It's a death wish wrapped in steel. But now, picture the scene on the hill. The sun is shining. The hawks are watching. Casca rushes forward. Our runaway Guts sees them differently. He doesn't see them as potential victims of his curse. He sees them as a threat to his freedom. He has spent years looking over his shoulder, expecting Gambino or his men to come dragging him back. He values his autonomy above all else because he stole it back from Gambino without bloodshed. So when Griffith rides up, that ethereal, white-haired avatar of ambition, Guts doesn't look at him with the nihilistic rage of the cannon. He looks at him with suspicion. Who owns you is the question burning in his eyes. The duel happens. It has to happen. Causality demands these two souls collide. The Behelite screams for it. But the texture of the fight changes. Cannon Guts fights Griffith with raw, brute force, trying to smash through Griffith's technique. He is the hammer striking the anvil. But runaway Guts? He might be more defensive. He's used to evading, used to escaping. He might try to disarm Griffith, to create an opening to flee. Griffith, ever the tactician, would be even more intrigued. In Cannon, he saw a mad dog he wanted to leash. Here, he sees a lone wolf who has mastered the art of slipping chains. The desire to possess Guts becomes not just about acquiring strength, but about capturing something that refuses to be caught. I want you, Griffith says. And in this timeline, the words land on ears that are not deafened by self-loathing, but sharpened by paranoia. Guts loses, of course. Griffith dislocates his shoulder. The result is the same. Guts joins the band of the Hawk. But the dynamic? Oh, the dynamic shifts tectonically. In the Cannon Golden Age, Guts looks up to Griffith as an ideal. He seeks Griffith's validation to replace the father he killed. If this perfect man accepts me, maybe I'm not a monster. That is the unconscious logic. But if Gambino is still alive somewhere, rotting in a mercenary camp, Guts doesn't need a father replacement in the same way. He doesn't have that gaping void of guilt that needs filling. He joins the Hawks, but he keeps his distance. He's less the loyal hound and more the skeptical partner. And here is where the enthusiasm of discovery hits me. Think about Casca. In the original story, Guts and Casca bond over their shared trauma and their devotion to Griffith. Guts understands Casca's pain because he feels he is pain. But runaway Guts? He might look at Casca's blind devotion to Griffith and feel pity or frustration. He sees someone willingly handing over the freedom he fought so hard to keep. This creates a friction that is less rivalry and more philosophical conflict. Guts challenges Casca not just on the battlefield, but on the nature of servitude. "Why do you follow him?" asks the boy who ran away from his master. "Because he gave me a sword," answers the girl who was saved. "I took my own sword," Guts might reply. And boom! The romantic tension is now built on a clash of worldviews so sharp it could cut steel. Now we have to talk about the darkness, the beast of darkness. In the manga, this entity manifests later, born from the trauma of the eclipse and the accumulated rage of Guts' life. Its seeds are sown in the blood of Gambino. The beast whispers, "You are a killer. You enjoyed it." Without the patricide, does the beast exist? I argue, yes, but it is different. It is quieter. It is not a roaring wolf of bloodlust. It is a cold shadow of mistrust. It doesn't tell Guts to kill everyone. It tells him to trust no one. It tells him that connection is a trap, that love is a prelude to betrayal. This is a more insidious kind of darkness because it doesn't look like madness. It looks like wisdom. And this brings us to the most crucial pivot point of the Golden Age, the moment where the absence of Gambino's death changes history. The assassination of Adonis. You remember it. The stealth mission, the sewers. Guts kills General Julius. And then tragedy strikes. Adonis, the young son, stumbles in. Guts reacts. He kills the boy. And when he sees the dying child, he sees himself. He sees the boy he was, dying at the hands of a father figure. It is the moment Guts realizes that by following Griffith's dream, he has become Gambino. He has become the monster he hated. But in our what if, Guts never killed Gambino. So he stands over Adonis. The boy catches him. Guts raises his sword. Does he swing? In the canon, it was a reflex born of a lifetime of kill or be killed conditioning, specifically triggered by the father-son dynamic. But runaway Guts has a different reflex. Flight. Maybe, just maybe, he doesn't kill the boy. Maybe he punches him out. Maybe he grabs him and throws him aside. Or maybe he freezes just for a second, because the image of a helpless son doesn't trigger guilt. It triggers empathy. If Adonis lives, the dominoes of causality begin to wobble. If Adonis lives, there is a witness who saw a man with a giant sword. The cover-up becomes impossible. The band of the Hawk is implicated immediately. Griffith's plan unravels not because of Guts's departure, but because of Guts's mercy. Wait, let's pull back. That's too chaotic. Let's assume causality forces the death. Let's assume Adonis dies, perhaps by accident, or perhaps Guts is forced to do it. Even if the boy dies, the reaction is what matters. Canon Guts vomits. He has a panic attack. He is broken by the realization that he is no better than Gambino. Runaway Guts, he would still be horrified. He just killed a child. But the specific resonance, I am my father, isn't there. He sees it as a casualty of war, a terrible mistake, but not a confirmation of his cursed nature. He doesn't spiral into self-loathing. He spirals into doubt about Griffith. Is this what your dream costs? He asks Griffith later. Not, I am too dirty for your dream, but your dream is too dirty for me. Do you see the difference? It shifts Guts from a tragic figure seeking redemption to a moral judge questioning the price of ambition. It positions him as an equal to Griffith much earlier, and this leads us to the bonfire of dreams, the conversation that defines the series. Guts hears Griffith say, "A friend is someone who never relies on another's dream." In canon, this breaks Guts. It confirms he is nothing to Griffith. In our timeline, runaway Guts hears this and thinks, finally, he gets it. Because runaway Guts already values independence, he ran away from Gambino to be his own man. Griffith's speech doesn't crush him, it validates him. It doesn't make him feel small. It makes him feel seen. I have to leave, Guts decides, not to find himself, but to prove himself, to show Griffith that he is that equal. The departure is less about heartbreak and more about a challenge. A friendly rivalry turned deadly serious. But the tragedy of Berserk is that causality is a spiral, not a straight line. You can run from the starting point, but the destination, the eclipse, pulls you in like a black hole. We are approaching the end of this chapter, and I want you to sit with this realization. By removing the sin of patricide, we haven't saved Guts. We might have actually made him more vulnerable. Why? Because the guilt of killing Gambino gave Guts a thick armor of cynicism. It made him expect the worst. A Guts who is innocent of that specific crime might be more open, more hopeful. He might let his guard down with the Hawks more than he should. He might believe, truly believe, that he has escaped the darkness of his childhood. And Berserk is a story that punishes hope, that isn't forged in fire. As the Golden Age winds toward its inevitable bloody climax, Runaway Guts is a man who thinks he has outrun his past. He thinks the nightmare is behind him in a rainy tent years ago. He is wrong. The nightmare isn't behind him. It's waiting for him in the Red Lake. And because he didn't kill the first monster he loved, he might not be ready to face the White Hawk who becomes the ultimate monster. The sword of the struggler is heavy, my friends. But in this timeline, the heaviest weight isn't what he did. It's what he believes he escaped. But wait. There's one loose thread we haven't pulled yet. If Guts didn't kill Gambino, then Gambino is still alive. Somewhere in the Midlands, a one-legged, bitter, hateful old mercenary is still breathing, still drinking, and perhaps still looking for the boy who ran away with his investment. Imagine the reunion, not in a tent, but on the battlefield of the 100-Year War. Guts, the commander of the raiders, facing the ghost of his past. Not a ghost in his mind, but a flesh-and-blood man standing across the muddy field. How does the Golden Age break when the past literally comes back to haunt the present? That is where the true horror begins. We are deep in the 100-Year War now. The mud is thicker, the blood is darker, and the legend of the 100-Man Slayer is about to be born. But in this timeline, the legend feels different. It lacks that suicidal edge. When Cannon Guts swings his sword, he is screaming at the ghosts of his past. When Runaway Guts swings his sword, he is carving out a future. But the past, as Miura teaches us with every stroke of his pen, is not a place you leave behind. It is a shadow that stretches as the sun goes down. And the sun is setting on the Golden Age. Let's visualize the scene that changes everything. It's a skirmish on the border of Tudor. The Band of the Hawk is routing a mercenary unit hired by the enemy. It's messy work. Rain, viscera, the chaotic symphony of dying men. Guts is tearing through the lines. His great sword, the precursor to the Dragon Slayer, cleaving armor like parchment. He is a whirlwind of efficiency. He isn't fighting with the frantic desperation of someone trying to drown out the voice of a dead father. He is fighting with the cold precision of a professional who knows he is better than everyone else. And then he sees him. It's not a dramatic cinematic reveal. There is no thunderclap. It's just a man, an older man, limping heavily, his face scarred by years of cheap alcohol and bad decisions, commanding a ragtag group of desperate sellswords. It's Gambino. Freeze this moment in your mind. This is the collision of two realities. In the canon, Gambino is a specter, a nightmare that haunts Guts' sleep, a symbol of the ultimate betrayal. Here, he is just a man, a pathetic, small man struggling to stay upright in the mud. Guts stops. The battlefield noise fades into a dull roar. The runaway narrative crashes into reality. Guts has spent years telling himself he escaped, that he is free. But seeing Gambino alive, breathing, shouting orders, it triggers a visceral regression. For a second, Guts is 9 years old again. He is trembling. The sword feels too heavy. Gambino sees him, and the recognition is slow, dawning through the haze of battle fatigue. He doesn't see the Raiders' captain. He sees the investment that ran away. He sees the bad luck that cursed his life. "You," Gambino snarls, not with fear, but with entitlement. "You little bastard. You owe me. I fed you. I kept you alive." This is the crucible. This is where the timeline could snap back or shatter completely. Cannon Guts would have killed him instantly in a blind rage, purging the demon. But this Guts has built his identity on not being a killer of kin. Guts raises his sword. The tip hovers inches from Gambino's throat. The old man flinches, slipping in the mud, falling onto his back, a mirror image of that night in the tent. But the tent is gone. The sky is vast, and Guts looks down at this man who defined his entire existence. This man who sold him for silver, and he realizes something devastatingly simple. Gambino is small. He isn't a monster. He isn't a dark god of fate. He is just a bitter, broken mercenary dying in the dirt. Griffith rides up. He sees the standoff. He sees his captain, the unstoppable force, frozen above a fallen enemy. Griffith, with his terrifying perception, reads the body language immediately. He knows this isn't just an enemy. "Guts," Griffith calls out. His voice is calm, cutting through the rain. In the canon, Guts would have hidden this shame. But here, Guts lowers the sword. He doesn't swing. He doesn't kill Gambino. He spits on the ground next to him. "Keep the silver," Guts mutters, his voice rough with an emotion he can't name. "We're even." He turns his back. He walks away. He leaves Gambino alive in the mud, terrified and confused, stripped of his power not by death, but by indifference. This act of mercy is actually an act of supreme arrogance. It is Guts declaring, "You are beneath my blade." It is the ultimate rejection of Gambino's control. But it has a catastrophic side effect. Griffith sees it. Griffith sees Guts spare an enemy. Griffith sees Guts walk away from a kill. To Griffith, who sacrifices everything and everyone for his dream, this is a flaw. It's a crack in the perfect weapon he thought he owned. He realizes that Guts has a morality that supersedes his orders. A mad dog can be aimed, but a man with a code, a man who makes his own judgments about who lives and dies, that man is dangerous. That man is a rival. This subtle shift poisons the water between them much earlier. In the canon, Griffith feels possessive of Guts because Guts is his. Here, Griffith feels threatened by Guts because Guts is his own man. Now, let's ripple this forward to the 100-man Slayer event. Guts stays behind to let Casca escape. He fights Samson and his men. He enters the zone, that berserker state where he dances with death. But without the deep-seated self-hatred, the struggle feels different. He isn't fighting to prove he has the right to live. He is fighting because he refuses to let these nobodies take his future. When Casca finds him in the morning, leaning against the tree, battered and bloody, the conversation in the cave shifts. In the original, Guts talks about finding his own dream, inspired by Griffith's speech. He talks about how he needs to leave to be worthy. In our timeline, Guts is cleaner in his resolve. The encounter with Gambino unlocked something. He realized that staying with the Hawks is just trading one father figure for another. He traded Gambino for Griffith. He traded one master for another. And after seeing Gambino in the mud, Guts realizes he has outgrown masters entirely. "I'm not doing this for him anymore," Guts tells Casca, the firelight dancing in his eyes. "I'm not a sword in someone else's sheath. I'm just me." Casca, who is so desperate for Griffith's approval, is terrified by this. But she is also magnetized by it. Here is a man who stood over his nightmare and walked away. Here is a man who doesn't need Griffith to tell him who he is. The romance that blooms here is more intense because Casca isn't just finding comfort in a fellow sufferer. She is falling for a man who represents the freedom she is too afraid to seize. She begs him to stay, not just for Griffith, but because she fears that without him, the dream will eat her alive. And she is right. We arrive at the snowy hill, the departure, the moment that breaks the world. In canon, Guts leaves with a heavy heart thinking he is doing it for Griffith to become his equal. It is a tragic misunderstanding. In this timeline, Guts leaves with a clear head. He packs his bag. He walks past the celebration. He meets Griffith in the snow. But the dialogue is sharper. "You belong to me," Griffith says. The mask slips. It's not a statement of camaraderie. It's a command. Runaway Guts, who spent his childhood fleeing from ownership, hears Gambino in Griffith's voice. He hears the echo of "I own you." And it triggers that primal defiance. "I don't belong to anyone," Guts replies. His hand rests on his sword. "I walked away from the man who made me. I can walk away from you." The duel begins. But Guts isn't trying to impress Griffith. He isn't trying to win a title. He is trying to escape. His strikes are defensive, powerful, designed to shatter Griffith's weapon so he can leave. He breaks Griffith's sword, not by overwhelming force, but by exploiting Griffith's arrogance. Griffith attacks, expecting Guts to be the brute. But Guts, who has learned to survive by being smarter than his abusers, counters with a technique. The sword snaps. The sound echoes across the snowy plain like a gunshot. Griffith falls to his knees. In the canon, he is in shock. In this timeline, he is humiliated. He has been bested by a man who refused to play his game. Guts sheathes his sword and looks down at the White Hawk. "Build your kingdom, Griffith," Guts says, turning his back just as he did with Gambino. "But build it without me." He walks away. He leaves Griffith in the snow. And this is the tragedy. By walking away with such clarity, Guts destroys Griffith more completely than in the original. In the original, Griffith could tell himself, Guts was a fool who didn't understand. Here, Griffith knows Guts understood perfectly and rejected him anyway. The rejection is absolute. It confirms Griffith's deepest insecurity, that without his dream, he is nothing, that people only love the mask, not the man. Guts leaves. He spends a year wandering, and in this timeline, that year is peaceful. Without the crushing guilt, Guts actually finds some semblance of happiness. He trains. He meets Godot sooner, perhaps. He refines his swordsmanship not as a tool of war, but as an art. He becomes the sparking swordsman, not out of fury, but out of excellence. He thinks he has won. He thinks the story is over. He stood up to his father. He stood up to his commander. And he is free. But he has forgotten the fundamental rule of Berserk. You cannot outrun the eclipse. While Guts is finding himself, Griffith is rotting in the Tower of Rebirth. The torture is the same. The breaking is the same. But the hatred Griffith nurses in the dark is different. He doesn't just miss Guts. He hates him. He hates him for being free. He hates him for being the one thing Griffith could not conquer. When the Hawks finally rescue Griffith, when Guts returns, not as a prodigal son seeking redemption, but as a strong friend offering a helping hand, the dynamic is excruciating. Guts is whole. He is strong. He has Casca's love. He has the respect of the raiders. He is everything Griffith wanted to be, but achieved it without sacrificing his humanity. Griffith looks at Guts, glowing with health and vitality, and looks at his own ruined body. The envy is cosmic. It is a black hole. And then the Behalit screams. We are standing at the precipice of the eclipse now. The stage is set, but the tragedy is going to be infinitely more painful because Guts has hope. In the canon, Guts entered the eclipse already half broken, a man familiar with hell. In this timeline, Guts enters the eclipse believing in the future. He believes he has saved Casca. He believes they are going to leave the mercenary life behind. He believes he has fixed everything. He has no idea that the struggle hasn't even started. He has no idea that by sparing Gambino, by walking away from Griffith with his head held high, he has stoked the fires of the sacrifice higher than ever before. The crimson Behalit rearranges the face of the world. The sky turns into a twisted visage. The ground becomes flesh. The God hand descends. And here is the twist that twists the knife. When the apostles circle the hawks, when the slaughter begins, Guts fights with a confusion that is heartbreaking. He screams, "Why?" at the sky. He doesn't understand. He played by the rules. He overcame his trauma. He was a good man. Why is this happening? This is the lesson Mura forces us to confront. The abyss does not care if you are healed. It does not care if you have moved on. Causality is a grinder, and it demands blood. As Femto rises, born from Griffith's despair, he doesn't look at Guts with the detached godhood of the canon. He looks at him with recognition. He looks at the man who walked away. The rape of Casca, the branding, the slaughter. In this timeline, it feels less like a ritual and more like a punishment. It is Femto saying, "You thought you were free? You thought you could walk away from me? You belong to the darkness, Guts. You always have." Guts loses his eye. He loses his arm. But the thing he loses most in this version of the eclipse is his innocence. Not the innocence of a child, but the innocence of a man who thought he could fix his life. The scream he lets out as the eclipse ends is not just rage. It is the sound of a worldview shattering. The Black Swordsman is born not from the continuation of a cursed life, but from the destruction of a healed one. And that makes the beast that emerges from the blood so much terrifying, because this beast remembers what it was like to be happy, and it will burn the world down to get that back, or to ensure no one else ever has it. But before we close this chapter, we must ask, what happened to Gambino? Remember, Guts left him alive. As the eclipse swallows the world, somewhere in the distance, an old man looks up at the strange, dark sky. He feels a chill in his bones. He doesn't know that the boy he raised has just become the center of a cosmic storm. He takes a drink from his flask, grumbles about the weather, and limps on. The irony is absolute. The man who started it all survives, oblivious, while the son who spared him is dragged into hell. This is berserk. There is no karma. There is only the current of causality. And Guts is now drowning in it. The dragon slayer hits the ground with a sound that isn't quite metal and isn't quite stone. It is the sound of a verdict. In the canon Berserk, the Black Swordsman arc is fueled by a suicidal nihilism. Guts runs into the jaws of apostles because he wants to tear them apart, but also because part of him wants to cease existing. He is a man hollowed out by guilt, filled only with the fire of the God Hand's betrayal. But in our timeline, the man wrapped in the black cape, the man missing an eye and an arm, is fueled by something far more volatile: injustice. Remember, this Guts entered the eclipse with hope. He entered believing he had escaped the cycle of abuse, that he had outsmarted his destiny by refusing to kill Gambino and refusing to submit to Griffith. And for that arrogance, the universe stripped him of everything. His rage, therefore, is not the rage of a sinner seeking punishment. It is the rage of a man who played by the rules and was cheated by God. This makes him sharper, more lucid, and terrifyingly focused. He doesn't just want to kill the apostles. He wants to put the world on trial. As we move into the Lost Children arc, this difference becomes the lens through which we view the horror. This arc is essentially a dark fairy tale about children running away to become elves, monsters, to escape abusive homes. In the canon, Guts looks at Rosine and the insect children with a mixture of disgust and self-recognition. He sees the beast he fears he is. But our runaway Guts. He looks at Rosine and sees himself. He sees the child who ran into the rain. He sees the desperate need to escape a parent who hurts you. This creates a hesitation in him that Canon Guts lacks. When he fights Rosine, it isn't just a monster hunt. It is a psychological war against his own history. I ran away too, his blade seems to say with every parry, but I didn't turn into this. Or did he? The eclipse turned him into a monster of a different sort. The tragedy here is that Guts realizes that running away didn't save him. Rosine ran away and became a moth. Guts ran away and became a whirlwind of iron and blood. The destination was the same. The abyss caught them both. This empathy makes the violence of the lost children arc even more gut-wrenching. When he kills the insect children, he isn't just killing monsters. He is killing the runaways who didn't make it. It hurts him. We see it in the panels where he sits alone afterwards. In canon, he pushes Puck away because he fears connection. Here, he pushes Puck away because he feels he failed to protect the innocence of the world. Don't touch me, he might say. I am where hope goes to die. But the true hammer blow of this chapter, the moment that redefines the trajectory of this timeline, lies in the loose end we left dangling in the mud years ago, Gambino. We are entering the conviction arc. The world is becoming a nightmare. Refugees are flooding toward Albion. Plague, famine, and heresy are rampant. Guts is tracking the scent of the dark, hunting for Casca, hunting for Griffith. And amidst this sea of human misery, causality decides it is time to close the loop. Picture a refugee camp on the edge of a dying forest. It's raining. Miura always brings the rain when the past returns. Guts is resting, the dragon slayer propped against a tree, his branded neck throbbing. He hears a voice, a hacking wet cough, and a voice that is essentially a ghost story wrapped in phlegm. Spare a coin, just a copper, for an old veteran? Guts freezes. The brand doesn't bleed for this. There are no demons nearby. This is a human horror. He turns his head. There, sitting in the mud, wrapped in rags that were once mercenary leathers, is Gambino. He is missing teeth. His leg is a twisted ruin. He is a shell of a man broken by the years, by the alcohol, by the sheer indifference of a world that eats weak men. He doesn't recognize Guts. How could he? The boy he knew had 2 eyes and 2 arms. This looming giant of black iron is a demon to him. This moment is electric. In the canon, Guts carries the guilt of killing this man. He carries the trauma of being the murderer. Here, Guts stares at the man he spared. And what does he see? He doesn't see a monster. He sees a waste of life. The realization hits Guts harder than any apostle's fist. I let this live? He realizes that his act of mercy years ago didn't save Gambino. It just prolonged his misery. Gambino has spent years rotting, blaming the boy who ran away, stewing in his own failure. Guts approaches him. The metal boots sink into the mud. Gambino, Guts says. The name sounds foreign on his tongue. The old man squints, fear flickering in his rheumy eyes. Who knows that name? I'm the investment, Guts says. The 3 silver coins. The recognition is a slow, horrified dawn. Gambino gasps. He looks at the missing arm, the missing eye, and then the old toxicity, the core of his character, bubbles up. He doesn't ask for forgiveness. He doesn't weep with joy. He gets angry. You, Gambino hisses, scrambling back. You cursed brat. It's your fault. My leg, my luck, everything. You ran away with my fortune. It is pathetic. It is absurd. And Guts starts to laugh, not the maniacal laughter of the Black Swordsman, but a dry, hollow sound. He realizes the cosmic joke. He spent his whole life running from this. He defined his morality by not killing this worm? I didn't steal your fortune, old man, Guts says quietly. I stole myself. He turns to leave. He's going to do it again. He's going to walk away. He has demons to kill. He has no time for ghosts, but causality. Oh, you cruel, spiral-shaped master. Causality cannot let the circle remain open. As Guts turns his back, Gambino sees the sword. Not the dragon slayer, but the dagger on Guts's belt. He sees value. He sees one last score. His mind is gone, eaten by syphilis and drink. He thinks if he can just kill this curse, his luck will return. Gambino lunges. He has a rusty shiv hidden in his rags. He screams, a broken, warbling battle cry. Die, you curse. Guts doesn't even need to think. His body has been forged in the eclipse. His reflexes are faster than thought. He senses the killing intent. The runaway is gone. Only the warrior remains. He spins. The movement is a blur. The prosthetic iron hand lashes out, a backhand meant to deflect. But the iron hand is heavy, and Gambino is frail. The metal fist connects with Gambino's skull. There is a sickening crunch. The old man goes flying, landing in the mud like a discarded doll. Silence descends on the camp. Guts stands there, the iron hand extended, smoke seeming to rise from the impact. He looks down. Gambino is dead. He didn't mean to do it. Not really. It was a reflex, a swatting of a fly. But the result is the same. The patricide that Guts spent his entire life avoiding, the sin he ran into the storm to escape, the fate he thought he cheated. It found him. In the canon, Guts killed Gambino in self-defense as a boy, and it broke him. In this timeline, Guts kills Gambino by accident as a man, and it hollows him out. He stares at the corpse. The rain washes the blood into the soil. The irony is suffocating. He realizes that you cannot run from who you are. The world decided he was a patricide the moment he was born from a corpse. He delayed it. He fought it. But in the end, the iron hand, the symbol of his struggle against the God Hand, was the instrument that fulfilled the prophecy. This is the moment. The beast of darkness truly wakes up in this timeline. It doesn't whisper about bloodlust. It whispers about futility. See? The beast sneers in his mind. It doesn't matter what you choose. It doesn't matter how fast you run. The destination is set. You are a killer. You are mine. Guts falls to his knees, not in tears, but in exhaustion. He feels the weight of the dragon slayer on his back, and for the first time, it feels too heavy to lift. This is a dangerous moment. This is where he could give up. This is where the struggle could end. But then, he feels it. The brand bleeds, not because of Gambino, but because the night is coming. The possessed spirits of the refugee camp are rising, drawn by the death, drawn by the brand. They swarm the camp. Guts looks at the dead father who hated him. Then he looks at the spirits coming to devour the innocent refugees hiding in the wagons nearby. And here, the character pivot happens. The pivot that defines the rest of the series. Canon Guts fights to survive. Runaway Guts fights to defy. He stands up. He doesn't look at Gambino again. He steps over the body. He draws the dragon slayer. The raw slab of iron rings out. Come and get me, he snarls at the darkness. I've already killed my past. You're just leftovers. He fights with a cold, mechanical precision. He isn't protecting himself. He is protecting the idea that choice matters. He kills the spirits to prove that he is still the one swinging the sword, not causality. But deep down, the crack has formed. He knows now that he is walking a tightrope over hell. This leads us into the conviction arc finale at the Tower of Conviction, with a profound shift in dynamic. When he meets Farnese and the Holy Iron Chain Knights, Guts is less mocking and more weary. He sees their dogma, their blind belief that God controls everything, and he hates it with a personal venom. He knows that believing in fate is what gets you killed. He knows because fate just tricked him into murder. So when he confronts Mosgus, the fanatic, who believes his stony form is a gift from God, Guts' ideological rebuttal is fierce. "Don't pray," Guts screams, swinging the sword that killed 100 men and one father. "If you pray, your hands close, and if your hands are closed, you can't fight the thing that's trying to kill you." In this timeline, that line hits different. It's not just philosophy, it's autobiography. Guts kept his hands open his whole life to avoid the sin of his father, and the moment he let his guard down, fate closed his hand into a fist. He is warning them. The universe is a trap. Fight or die. And when Griffith is reborn, when the White Hawk emerges from the mock eclipse at Albion, Guts watches from the edges of the chaos. In the canon, he is paralyzed by shock and rage. Here, seeing Griffith rise again, beautiful and perfect, while Guts stands there with the fresh, invisible blood of Gambino on his iron hand, the contrast breaks something fundamental. Griffith is the man who sacrificed everything and was rewarded with godhood. Guts is the man who tried to save everything and was punished with damnation. The injustice is absolute. As Zod flies Griffith away, Guts doesn't just scream Griffith's name. He makes a silent vow, a vow that is terrifyingly calm. "I won't just kill you," Guts thinks, the beast of darkness curling around his heart like a comforting lover. "I will prove you wrong. I will prove that a struggler can kill a god." He turns back to Casca. She is safe, for now. But Guts is different. The runaway is dead. He died in the mud with Gambino. The man who remains is no longer running away from the abyss. He is running toward it, sword in hand, ready to cut the very concept of destiny into pieces. This sets the stage for the Millennium Falcon arc. Guts needs allies, not because he wants friends, but because he realizes he cannot fight the tide of causality alone. He needs anchors. He needs Shirkan, Isidro, Farnese. He needs them to remind him that he is more than just the killer of his father. But the question remains, can he protect them? Or is he destined to be the king of the Hill of Swords, standing alone on a pile of corpses, having killed everyone he ever tried to save? The berserker armor is waiting, and in this timeline, the armor doesn't just smell rage. It smells the delicious rotting scent of futility, and it whispers, "Let me take the pain away. Let me make the choice for you." And Guts, the man who is tired of choosing, might just listen. We stand now at the threshold of the most dangerous artifact in the Berserk mythos, the Berserker armor. In the canon timeline, Guts dons this cursed suit of dwarf-forged steel because he is physically outmatched. He needs it to close the gap between a human and an apostle. He accepts the pain, the biting of the steel into his flesh, because he is used to pain. Pain is his oldest friend. But in our timeline, the context of this transaction is fundamentally altered by the death of Gambino in the mud. Guts is not just physically outmatched. He is psychologically exhausted. The accidental killing of his father, the very act he spent a lifetime running from, has planted a seed of nihilism deep in his gut. The beast of darkness in this reality doesn't just roar with bloodlust. It whispers with the seductive logic of surrender. "You tried to be good," it murmurs. "You tried to be merciful, and look where it got you. The universe forced your hand. Why not stop fighting the current? Why not let the armor steer?" When Flora presents the armor in the burning mansion, Guts looks at the helmet, the skull shape that will shift into the wolf. He doesn't hesitate as he does in the canon. He puts it on with a sense of grim resignation. He isn't putting on armor. He is putting on a coffin. He is accepting that if he is destined to be a killer, he might as well be the most efficient killer in existence. The transformation is terrifying. When the helmet clamps shut, shutting out the light of the burning mansion, Guts surrenders to the odd. The pain vanishes, the fear vanishes, and crucially, the guilt vanishes. For the first time since he backhanded Gambino into the afterlife, Guts feels light. The armor takes the burden of choice away. If he kills his friends now, it won't be his fault. It will be the armor. It is the ultimate abdication of responsibility, the drug that the runaway soul craves most. The fight with Grunbeld becomes a massacre. In canon, Guts fights like a wild animal. Here, he fights like a machine, cold, precise, unfeeling. He breaks Grunbeld's shield not with a scream of exertion, but with the silent hydraulic force of a nightmare. When he turns toward Shirke, toward his friends, the threat is far more palpable. The canon Guts is fighting a blind rage. This Guts is fighting the apathy of his own soul. Shirka has to pull him back, not just from the abyss of rage, but from the abyss of indifference. She has to remind him that he cares. Come back, Shirka screams into the luminous void of his consciousness. You are not a weapon. And Guts, hearing that voice, remembers the boy in the rain. He remembers that he ran away to be a person, not a thing. He claws his way back, the armor retracting with a sickening crunch. He falls to the ground, shivering. He is back in the pain. He is back in the guilt. And he realizes, with a horror that chills his blood, that he liked it inside the armor. He liked not having to choose. This sets the tone for the journey to Britannis and the boat. The dynamic with the new party, Farnese, Serpico, Isidro, is fraught with a new tension. Guts is terrified of himself. In the canon, he worries he might hurt them in a fit of rage. Here, he worries about the reflex. He killed his father with a stray backhand. What if he kills Isidro during training? What if he kills Farnese while he sleeps? He becomes distant, almost clinical in his instructions. He stops sparring with them. He watches them from a distance, like a shepherd who knows he is actually a wolf. Isidro, who idolizes Guts, feels this distance. Why won't he teach me? The boy wonders. He doesn't know that Guts looks at him and sees the fragility of life, sees how easily a hero can become a murderer. Guts is trying to break the cycle of mentorship that leads to betrayal. He refuses to be a Gambino to Isidro. He refuses to own him, or even to guide him too closely, lest the boy inherits his curse. But Berserk is about connection, even in the face of despair. The pivotal moment comes on the beach of Britannis, the Kushan invasion, the sheer scale of the enemy forces. Guts is tired. His body is falling apart. The armor is eating his senses, his taste, his color vision, his touch. He is fading into a gray world. When the Kushan Emperor Ganishka manifests as the giant mist form and the chaos erupts, Guts stands on the pier. He is surrounded by enemies. He looks at his friends, Casca staring blankly, Farnese trying to be brave, Shirka exhausted. The beast whispers, "Let go. Let me handle it. You can't save them. You couldn't even save the old man." Guts grips the dragon slayer. The handle is slick with blood and sea spray. He closes his remaining eye. He thinks of Gambino. He thinks of the 3 silver coins. He thinks of the years he spent running, thinking he was free. He realizes that freedom isn't about running away. It isn't about avoiding the kill. Freedom is owning the kill. If he is a killer, he will kill for them. He will not be a victim of causality, who kills by accident. He will be a master of causality, who kills by intent. I am not a leaf in the wind, Guts growls, the words lost in the roar of battle, but heard clearly in his own soul. I am the storm. He engages the berserker armor, but this time he doesn't surrender. He fights the armor for control of every swing. He directs the fury. He creates a pocket of safety for his friends, a whirlwind of steel that nothing can penetrate. He destroys the Kundalini serpents. He holds the line, and he does it with a terrifying lucidity. He is burning his life force at double the rate, but he is doing it by choice. This victory on the beach changes the group dynamic. Farnese sees not a monster, but a martyr. Serpico, who has always distrusted Guts, sees the discipline required to hold back that much power. They stop fearing him and start revering him, which Guts hates, but accepts as necessary. The boat journey to Elfhelm is long. It gives Guts time to think. He sits on the deck, looking at the ocean. The moon boy appears, the child with the long dark hair, who is secretly the vessel of Griffith. In this timeline, the interaction is poignant. Guts looks at the boy and feels a strange pull, not just paternal, but a resonance of innocence. He sees the boy he was before the rain, before the tent. He lets the boy sleep in his cloak. He protects him. It is Guts trying to save his own inner child by saving this mysterious stranger. And then, Elfhelm, the goal, the dream. They arrive on the island of the Flower Storm. The visuals are psychedelic, beautiful, and jarring against the darkness of Guts' soul. They meet Danon, the king of the Flower Storm. The ritual to heal Casca begins. Shirke and Farnese dive into the corridor of dreams. In the cannon, they see the dog, Guts, dragging a coffin, missing a leg, covered in wounds. In this timeline, the dreamscape is slightly different. The dog is still there, but it isn't just dragging a coffin. It is dragging a chain, a long, rusted chain that stretches back into the dark. And at the end of the chain is a corpse, the corpse of a father. The dog is trying to run, trying to pull forward, but the corpse is an anchor. This is Casca's perception of Guts. She saw his struggle not as a fight against demons, but as a fight against his origin. She saw the runaway boy who never stopped running. When they gather the fragments, the memories of the eclipse, the memories of the Golden Age, they also find a fragment that doesn't exist in the canon. A memory of a conversation by a campfire where Guts told Casca, "I didn't kill him. I walked away." It shines with a fragile, beautiful light. It represents the hope they once had. The healing is completed. Casca wakes up. She screams when she sees Guts, triggered by the trauma. This is inevitable. But the aftermath is where our story finds its unique resolution. Guts retreats to the cherry blossom tree. He stands alone, looking at the petals falling. He has succeeded. Casca is back. But he knows he cannot be with her, not just because of her trauma, but because of his secret. He feels he is a fraud. He feels he is the accidental patricide who is unworthy of the woman he saved. The Skull Knight appears, the harbinger of causality. "You have reached the end of your journey, struggler," the Skull Knight says. Or have you? Guts doesn't look at him. "I'm tired," Guts admits. "I ran my whole life. I ran from the tent. I ran from the hawks. I ran to this island, and everywhere I went, death was waiting for me. I even carried it here in my hand." He looks at his iron hand. "Causality is a spiral," the Skull Knight intones. "You cannot run from the center. You can only ascend or descend." "I didn't ascend," Guts says bitterly. "I just went in circles." "Did you?" The Skull Knight points toward the house where the others are celebrating. You forged bonds. You defied the logic of the world that says a beast must be alone. You spared your father once. You killed him once. The outcome was the same. But the path carved something different into your soul. You are not the man who ran away anymore. You are the man who stayed. Guts absorbs this, the man who stayed. He didn't run from the armor. He didn't run from the responsibility of leadership. He didn't run from the pain of healing Casca, even if it meant she would reject him. He realizes that the runaway died in the mud with Gambino, and the man who stands here now is finally, truly free. Not free from consequences, but free from the need to run. Griffith will come. The Moonlight Boy will transform. The peace of Elfhelm will be shattered. The final war will begin. But Guts is ready in a way he never was before. In the canon, Guts fights to protect Casca. In this timeline, Guts fights to protect the concept of choice. He fights to prove that even if you are destined to kill your father, even if you are destined to be a sacrifice, even if the game is rigged by godlike beings who manipulate every step, how you take the step matters. He draws the Dragon Slayer. It feels lighter. He looks at the horizon, where the white light of the World Tree pierces the sky. He imagines Griffith sitting on his throne in Falconia. "I'm done running, Griffith," Guts whispers, "and I'm done walking away. I'm coming. This is where we leave him, not as a tragic monster, but as a defiant human being. The what if didn't save him from suffering. It didn't save Gambino. It didn't stop the eclipse. But it gave Guts a different kind of strength, the strength of someone who has seen the worst of fate's irony and decided to laugh in its face. He turns back to the house. He walks toward his friends. He doesn't look back at the shadows. The struggle continues. But the runner has finally stopped to hold his ground, and in the silence of the Elfhelm night, if you listen closely, you can hear the sound of a sword being sheathed, not in resignation, but in readiness. The story of the boy who ran is over. The legend of the man who stands firm has just begun.